there are different systems to work, different types of exercise to work different systems within the body. I've said this in videos. I think I sent a video that actually talked about this. There is no one type of exercise that does everything you need for your body. It's one of the biggest errors is to try and find one thing that will do everything you need. Yoga doesn't do it, swimming doesn't do it, weight training doesn't do it. You actually need a mixture of all three. Cardiovascular exercise is very different to resistance exercise. And that again is very different to stretching muscles. I've already sort of touched on this. When you stretch a muscle, you can do it fairly frequently because it's not breaking down tissue in the way that resistance training does. It's quite alarming when I say breaking down tissue, but it's changing. The muscle is adapting when you place a load on it. That doesn't really happen when you stretch a muscle, and it only happens to a certain extent when you're doing cardiovascular exercise. Cardiovascular exercise, or cardio, is working your heart and lungs. It is increasing your lung capacity, increasing the strength of the heart to pump blood around the body. It's doing all kinds of things like that. And to do that, you need some sort of exercise that raises your heart rate to a certain level and keeps it there for a certain length of time. So good cardio exercise is swimming, running, cycling. Certain sports, if you're constantly moving within those sports. Cricket is an example of something that's probably not that cardio because you can be standing still and doing nothing. Tennis is interesting because if it's a really intense game of tennis, you're moving all the time. And so that might be good cardio. It depends. If you're playing sort of tennis doubles and you're not moving much, it's not great cardio. But cardio is a certain length of time with the heart rate up at a certain heartbeats per minute. Resistance exercise, I've already talked about a little bit. It's about increasing the load you place on a muscle to increase that muscle's ability to lift that weight or resistance. And the muscle slowly gets stronger. And there will be an increase in size in the muscle. There's no two ways about that. I've already explained that you shouldn't worry about getting too big. It really is, it's not really a fear that you should worry about. But it will increase the size of the muscle, the shape of the muscle as well. So the muscles look better when you start to strengthen the muscles, as long as you're reducing the fat that covers them. That's a different topic. I'm getting off topic, in fact. Stretching muscles, you're really lengthening the muscle or the muscle fibers, and you're also working the joints, the spaces between the bones, getting your body more mobile and flexible. That doesn't involve the same process that strength training does. So I like to look at it as a tripod of activities, something for flexibility, something for strength, something for your cardio. And you need something different for each one. There is a crossover, but there is something that is the most efficient to do each job. Yeah. Swimming falls into the category of cardio. There's no two ways about it. And it's brilliant exercise. There's nothing really better than swimming. I tell you what, I'll add to that. My preference for cardio, and it's just a personal preference, I like to run because I think when you're running, you have to be working. You can't really cruise. Whereas swimming, I think to a certain extent, if you're going quite slow, you can almost cruise and maybe the heart rate starts to drop a bit. It depends on your swimming. You talked about other strokes, and yes, other strokes. I'm not a great swimmer, but I know other strokes can be really tough. They'll be forcing your body to work. Now, you were asking about feeling the muscles when you're swimming. I assume something like butterfly or backstroke, butterfly especially, I would think. You are using those muscles. You are strengthening them to a certain degree, but it's not the most efficient way of strengthening them. So you will strengthen them to a certain point, and then over and above that, again, it moves into the realm of simply endurance. Once your muscles can cope with that butterfly stroke, once you're doing however many lengths of butterfly, you're probably not appreciably adding to the strength of the muscles involved. And I pointed out in an answer to your question on the group, athletes who swim, are getting stronger because they train with weights as well. It's nearly always part of an athlete's training program to include all these things. They're going to be weight training to get stronger for their swimming strokes. It's not the swimming stroke that's making them stronger, really. Does that answer your question? Just let's do it step by step.
Yes, and yes, mostly. I mean, I know, so when I go swimming, I will swim for 1 hour and try and do at least 64 lengths of the pool, because that's a mile. And now with COVID, you've got to build that time as getting there, because you've got to be in there and out in the time. So in one sense, that's setting a time to get into the pool, swim, get out and be out of the building within 1 hour. Doing breaststroke is very easy. It takes no effort at all. So I use that as a slowing down, as a recovery stroke, and try not to stop in between. And then I have a pattern. So many breaststrokes, so many front crawls, so many backstroke, and then butterfly, because butterfly is you feel out of breath, and also that movement is it feels like it feels like you're lifting a weight, and you're lifting yourself out of the water and back into the waters. It feels heavy, and so what I'd been doing was every 10th length doing butterfly, and then thinking, well, if you do it started with every 30 lengths and then every 20 and now every 10, but building it up. So by reducing the number of other styles in between, does that then make it some form of resistance? And then just, if I backtrack several years, I used to swim competitively, and butterfly gave me very, very broad shoulders.
Yeah.
And in the 80s, I remember someone, because you just had these things called shoulder pads in the 80s, and someone came and said, great shoulder pads, and said, I'm terribly sorry, that's your shoulder. There was no shoulder pad. So I know that it can give you swimming, it can build. And that's another sense why I'm conscious of. I mean, that comment has never left me, and which is why the bulky question as well.
No, I can understand that. I remember shoulder pads. I do from the 80s. that's okay. I think that's an unfortunate thing to have stuck. I mean, yes, the butterfly will work those muscles, and it is. You're right. It's working shoulders, upper back. And if you're doing a lot of that, yes, you are, because it is resistance training in that sense. It is going to build muscles. They probably would build to a certain level and not really build anymore. And everybody has a different genetic predisposition to increasing muscle size and strength as well. So maybe, and it can even vary from one muscle group to another. I don't know if you all know, but I used to be a bodybuilder, an amateur bodybuilder, way, way back. And so I'll often reference that. But in the bodybuilding world, some athletes, I call them athletes, some bodybuilders build up their arm muscles really easily, but they can't build size in their legs. And some can really build leg size easily, but they can't build shoulders. So it's one of two things. Perhaps you do actually have a talent for building up strength, and with that, a little bit of muscle size. Perhaps it was just in that area that you can build up really easily. But also, if you were swimming and doing something like the butterfly, that might have developed a bit of muscle size. I've never noticed that about you, Elizabeth. I wouldn't say the same thing about having shoulders or shoulder pads now. I still wouldn't worry about it. I think, is your question that you want to be doing that as resistance training, or are you worried that the swimming would build too much muscle size, or are you worried about resistance exercise and weight training building muscle size, or all of those things?
It's a combination of everything. So wanting to exercise proficiently, knowing that I do a lot of swimming and also got a dog, so a lot of walking, but that doesn't necessarily involve resistance training. And it's how you use it. Then again, one of my worries with the butterfly is I seriously do not want to have shoulder pad shoulders again.
Sure. That's a number of things. The first thing, I'll go back to that dog walking. Walking is not usually the best form of cardio because it's not lifting your heart rate high enough. Again, walking is brilliant exercise. I recommend people walk. But unless you're quite elderly or immobile, walking is not going to appreciably lift your heart rate. So your swimming is the best form of cardio for that reason. Resistance exercise, well, I suppose one strategy would be you could be doing resistance exercise for other muscle groups and not your shoulders. And you could use the butterfly. In fact, that would be a good way of gauging whether the butterfly was actually affecting or building your shoulders in that way. You could be doing, we could tailor a program for you where you're training leg muscles, core muscles, possibly arm muscles, back, perhaps lower back, not too much the upper back, and simply skipping exercises which train shoulders and back, and see if we can, because the idea when you're resistance training is to train everything equally. So if you're feeling that your butterfly is working the shoulders and you don't want to do any more work on that, that's your choice. This is the thing about the fear of getting big and bulky if you're training with weights. It's totally within your control. If you decided one day you were just getting too big, you just stop. You just cut it back and train in a different way. So you could stop doing the butterfly. Sorry, I've got a little face peering around the door at me. Hey, yeah. Would you like to meet Alexander? I think he'd like to say hello. Push the button. Push. Just briefly, Alexander, then you must go back. This is my little son. Some of you met him, some of you haven't. Come say hello. And of course, the other one's going to want to come in now. Just say hello. Can you see? Can you see? Hello, Alexander. You're going to say hello as well. Let me just... There we go. Okay. Okay, let me... You go back to mommy. Here's the other one. Say hello. Hello. Okay, so now say goodbye. Say goodbye. Off you go. Off you go. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Off you go. Now, I think I might just need to escort them out. Back in a minute. Off you go.
I want Paddington. I want to have Paddington.
That was unavoidable. It could have been worse. Sorry, Elizabeth. Sorry, Flip. I'm still getting used to calling you Flip. If you turn your microphone on, we'll go back to that question if you like. Your microphone's still.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to plug my. It was about to lose.
Actually, that's. I'll tell you why. You had a window in the background, and you were going really dark. It's being silhouetted, so that's actually a much better view as well. Does that make sense? Does that make sense that you can still be doing the butterfly for shoulder resistance work and doing other resistance work for other exercises and really focusing on the swimming as well for your cardio, the cardio element?
It makes absolute sense. And also it means that I can go back to every 10 or 20 lengths as opposed to thinking this is a good way of resistance training and do something else.
Yeah.
It's about finding something that's comprehensive and works, I suppose, for each of us as individuals.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to raise another point as well, that you don't need to be spending too long in any of these forms of exercise as well. So I wouldn't worry about the fact that you've got a limited time to swim. It should be fine if you're only doing less than an hour. It doesn't need to be hours long in whatever kind of exercise you're doing.
It's just only because of COVID. Previously, you could go into the swimming pool and spend an hour and swim, whereas now it's a 1 hour slot, and that 1 hour slot means arriving, getting changed, swimming, getting out of the pool, having it. So it's a beat the clock thing as well.
Yeah, no, I understand totally. Yeah. But I think you're on the right track. I think swimming is a great exercise. Don't worry so much about the time. Don't worry about getting big and bulky. I think try that. Use the butterfly for your upper body or shoulder work, different exercises for the other parts of the body, and plenty of stretching, plenty of yoga as well.
Well, the yin is wonderful.
Yes, I agree. It's my favorite form to do myself as well. Okay, I notice, Elizabeth, is that answering your question? If you think of anything else, please do. Alex, I notice you've got your hand up. Is that hand to say goodbye, or you're wanting to?
I just wanted to slightly disagree with something you said.
No, yeah, no, please do.
Basically, no, because I don't know if I've spoken to you about this before, but I was going out and walking in lockdown, but obviously walking, I have my headphones on, walking quite fast. I don't run because I've got a bad back, bad knees. But what there are actually these walk at home workouts that I said that I found that literally you're walking in your own home to the beat of the music, and it's not about people go, but my Fitbit told me I haven't done a mile or 2 miles, but in terms of the beat of the music you have. So if people are interested, I can put details in the chat. You can get it through YouTube, it's free, and you can go at your own pace, or you can go at the pace that they're going on the videos. There's lots of them out there. There's a crazy guy in Dubai who does them. I don't like his. And then there's a lady who's been doing it for about 30 or 40 years. And people all over the world use these things. The other thing I would ask Flip, have you got a Fitbit?
Flip, you can turn your microphone off. Please feel free if you want.
Have you got a
My
Fitbit?
dog has one. I think I should get some myself.
Yeah, because it really does help you realise the distance you're covering and how much you're exerting yourself. It will tell you whether you're in the sort of fat burning zone, the cardio zone. I find it really useful. So yeah, and it'll tell you about your sleep, which I don't get enough of. Sorry, Simon.
Sorry, that's raised some really good things. I'm not familiar with that program, but it sounds great. Fitbit is great. Also, the iWatch. I have an iWatch, and that tells me similar kind of information. Tells you things like your heart rate, which is really important for cardio. It does the sleep as well. So those kinds of gadgets are really good. They will come in handy actually they also calculate calories from a nutrition point of view as well. But yeah, no, I don't disagree about walking being good cardio wise as well. If you're doing some kind of program where it's lifting the heart rate, which by the sounds of it, those kinds of programs will. So it's not so much whether it's walking or running. It's just the fact that you're lifting your heart rate to a certain beats per minute for a certain length of time. But that sounds great. So yeah, if you wanted to place that in the chat, that's much appreciated.